Okay, here we are once again at COP26, but we're no longer in the action zone. We ventured out to the Pavilions area here within the Blue Zone, and I'm delighted to be at the Business Pavilion for Climate Leadership, which is hosted and organised by the We Mean Business Coalition, and I'm delighted to be joined now by María Mendiluce, the Chief Executive of the Coalition. Maria, thank you, hello, and thank you for hosting us. Talk to us a little bit about where we are now and what the purpose of these kind of pavilions are here at COP26.
Yes. So the Women Business Coalition was created back in 2014 as an organization that was bringing together business organizations that working with thousands of companies, often with the same companies, to bring to these moments a positive story, a positive set of commitments and actions to fight climate change. And so this COP, we thought that it was very important that we had a place where the coalition could meet. The coalition is the 7 founding partners, but also we have many other implementation partners with whom we work across the world, and this is the place for them to meet. So it is a pavilion that we have made available for all the business groups to meet, to hold events, etc. And it's been very successful. We're really happy of doing this. It is well positioned in a calm space and in the middle of all the fuss and all the stories and the movement of COP. We found a place where we can meet with businesses and plan about the next steps, about the how we're going to make these commitments materialize in real action.
And it's a great hub. There's loads of conversations happening around us, so you get that real sense that there's this energy among businesses thanks to pavilions like this. We're now into the second week. We're approaching that kind of crucial final run-in here at COP26. Firstly, what have you made of the first week, and what do you want to see happen in these next few days to give businesses that kind of clarity required to turn these kind of global ambitions into actions?
Yes. Well, I'm quite positive on what we're seeing at COP. I think the first thing we came to COP, we wanted to keep 1.5 alive, and I think 1.5 is in intensive care, but it's alive. So the IEA has estimated, the International Energy Agency has estimated that we are around 1.8, which is a really good progress from where we left Paris. Doesn't mean that those pledges materialize on emission reductions immediately, but it's important that both governments and business are setting themselves targets to go into that direction. So that's good. The second thing is the NDCs. The national plans are not where we wanted them to be, and that's unfortunate, but also what I think it's interesting is that now the conversations are about, can we have a ratchet mechanism every year instead of every 5 years? That's really positive, so that then countries can set these short-term targets on a more regular basis. The third element was the 100 billion. So governments have promised developing countries to give 100 billion. Well, they're not quite there, but at least we know that by 2023 we will be there. I think this is insufficient. I think there is a moral imperative. Governments need to help the most vulnerable countries with this funding that will help them both in adaptation and mitigation. Then, well, I think as we move to the next week, we are already on the second week. I think there's one thing that is very important is this global carbon markets, Article 6. This will be finalizing the Paris rulebook, and it's 6 years later. So it is about time that governments get their act together and come up with a solid agreement on how this global market is going to play.
So a couple of kind of more specifics coming off the back of that then. The first would be around the just transition. We've seen it discussed a little bit here across some of the stages, perhaps arguably not enough. What do you want to see happening when it comes to kind of ensuring decarbonisation is fair and equitable for all societies, including those that rely still a little bit on fossil fuels?
Yes, I think it's really important. So one of the elements is the 100 billion that I alluded to previously, and also we are seeing pledges by different institutions as well, in parallel to governments giving money to developing countries to facilitate the transition. So transition can happen in developing countries, but also in any sector in any industry or any regions, right? So it is not like, some countries might be doing very well, but there might be an area that is left behind. And so it is very important that governments and business work together in developing these transition plans for the workers, for example, building capacity so that they can be reskilled to work on the sectors that are going to thrive in the transition. The second element is that sometimes, and we're seeing now, energy prices have ups and downs. This has nothing to do with renewables, we know that for sure, but the vulnerable communities might be affected by these spikes and might not have access to efficient equipment, renewable energies. So I think governments need to invest in providing those groups with the appliances that are needed so that they can also decarbonize and not being hit by a transition that is not affordable to them.
Okay, and the other kind of question I had was around smaller businesses, because it's great that businesses have got a seat at the table essentially at this COP. They've had a huge presence thanks to pavilions like this. What do you want to see happening on a kind of smaller scale? 99% of the businesses in the UK are smaller and medium-sized businesses.
So I think this COP, it's very clear that this is not about the why or the what, this is about the how fast and how much. Okay, so in large companies know how to decarbonize their operations. It might be more or less difficult, but they know how to decarbonize their operations inside the company. I think the challenge is that between 50 and 95% of their emissions come from supply chains. And so that's the land of nowhere. So because we know that, we joined the Mission Possible partnership that is looking at how to abate emissions in the 7 highest emitting sectors, so whether it's materials, cement, steel, aluminium, chemicals, or whether it's transport, freight, aviation, trucking, maritime. And the other part is how do we decarbonize the small and medium enterprises. So we created the SME Climate Hub that is looking at how to provide a one-stop shop for SMEs to join the race to zero, to commit to net zero. They have access to tools, to education and incentives that will help them facilitate that transition. I think it is really important that we bring SMEs along and that we don't left behind and that they are part of the decarbonization of their own decarbonization journey, and by doing so they will have access to more opportunities for growth and for thriving.
Okay, and just finally, Maria, 3 or 4 days left now of this COP. In terms of the kind of legacy this COP leaves behind for businesses and for climate leadership, now that given that we're on the pavilion here, the Climate Leadership Pavilion, what is that? What does that legacy look like, and what would be your message be for businesses, sustainability professionals, to actually ensure that there is a strong and positive legacy that lasts on beyond this kind of 2-week talks?
Yeah. So, as you remember, the Paris Agreement concluded that we needed to be well below 2 degrees. Well, this is the COP where the pledges have brought the rise, the expected rise of temperature to that level. So that's, I think, one of the big successes. We hope that it will be the COP where we will create a global carbon market where countries can connect and reduce emissions and offset for those emissions with very clear rules that are very much needed. I think it is definitely the COP where we moved to the how, where we saw in mass the financial sector coming to the COP. The corporate sector has been in the COP since Paris, but now this is the COP where financiers are coming and are starting to look on how to accelerate through their financial decisions the transition of their portfolios and of the companies that they support.
Well, Maria, on that very inspirational note, I'll say thank you very much. Thanks for hosting us here, and best of luck with these final few days at COP.
Thanks a lot.